Did you know that building a solid brand that has a good reputation and mark in your marketplace can actually deter seller objections pretty much instantly before they ever connect with you? That's actually what we talk about today with Benmont Locher, who is the co-founder of Ramp REI. Ramp REI is a system for sales where he actually come visit real estate investors and help them build a good sales machine to make sure that they're utilizing their follow-up systems correctly and that sort of thing. So if you have interest in working with him, we'll talk about that here in just a second. You can visit ramprei.com. However, what we talk about in this episode is actually very, very interesting because we talk a lot about brand and brand development, brand building. Benmont was actually working with one of our previous guests, Eric Brewer, who has one of the largest house buying companies in the Northeast, Integrity First Home Buyers. And Benmont helped build that company to be a part of over 1,000 deals over just a couple of year time span. Actually, I think he said a 12-month time span, which is insane. And one of the things that he focuses on is building brand. And even to this day, when he's going into work with real estate investors, they focus on brand building so much because the bottom line is that if you have a brand that's reputable and solid in your marketplace, that will make, first of all, business a whole hell of a lot easier, but also it makes the process for a seller to get from them and their pain point all the way to you and convert and sell their house to you. It makes it a whole lot easier because you've laid out a very clear path for them in the vision. And we talk about also like deviation between, cold calling, outbound marketing, cold calling, bringing those voicemail drops, which really isn't much of a thing anymore, but text blasting and that sort of thing, versus putting branding out there that has like the marketing has really good branding and messaging that all connects with each other and creates connectivity points. And we use a couple examples on that. But the power in that means that you can have a seller contact you and already have established authority and credibility with them before you even say a word to them. And that's the place that we ultimately want to be. So Benmont, actually, one of the things we talk about is the interesting conversation of how he's seeing where businesses that have better brands and well-established brands are kind of elevating out of the woodworks beside people that actually have kind of like the generic brand, the We Buy Houses brands, the We Buy Ugly Houses brands and that sort of thing, where it's very generic marketing, or maybe they're doing PPL or whatever it is. But the people that have well-established brands are actually getting sellers come through. Maybe it's not volume-wise, but the quality of them. And so it's much easier to work with that seller and convert them because the established authority. And we all know brand, like we know the importance of brand and that sort of thing. Like we're maybe like the clothes that you're wearing right now, you have a brand on it. The shoes that you have right now, you bought it because there was a specific thing with the brand that you wanted. Maybe it was comfortable. Maybe you like the look of it, the color of it, whatever it is. But connectivity tissue within marketing creates the branding that your sellers are seeing. And so it's important to make sure that we connect all the pieces. So if you're doing direct mail, if you're doing TV ads, if you're doing Facebook ads, do they talk to each other? Do they hang out with each other? Are they on the same team? Or do you have a lone wolf where maybe your text blasts are marketing to the seller, but then you're also marketing to the same seller with TV ads and Facebook ads, and now they're getting confused on who they're talking to? You're going to create a lot of resistance with that. So making sure that all of your marketing is on the same boat, rowing in the same direction, giving the same messaging is highly important. So that's some of the things that we talk about today with Benmont. I'm really excited to introduce you guys to him. And again, if you do want to connect with him, make sure you visit ramprei.com. Without further ado, my good friend, Benmont Locher. Welcome back to the REI Marketing Weekly. It's your host, Josh Culler. And today I am joined by my good friend, Benmont Locher, co-founder of Ramp, which, funny enough, we had your good buddy, Joe Cipollini, on the show. He was actually on 2 weeks ago, I believe. And we talked about a lot of really good stuff, but I have really high expectations for you, Benmont. Joe was okay, but we're going to see where this conversation leads us today. So welcome to the show.
You like that, man. Thanks. Pleasure to connect with you. As always, love seeing you at events, whether it's in person or screen between us. It's always a good conversation. Those sales guys can be reckless, right? Seat of the pants, whim, feels likes. And I think you and I have a little bit more objective marketing approach. So yeah, we're going to level up the bar today and chop it up. I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And Joe talked about a lot of nerdy stuff that was over my head. So, it is what it is. But
yeah, he's a closet nerd. He's a sales closet nerd for sure. Yeah,
yes, for sure he is. But if you guys actually missed that episode, fantastic episode. Go back and listen to that with Joe Cipollini. It was literally a couple episodes ago. But today we're actually going to kind of round off some conversations with Benmont because him and Joe go around implementing sales systems and that kind of stuff and marketing systems for real estate investors. And I'll let you talk about that a little bit towards the end of the show as well, so that people can get a hold of you. But one of the things before hopping on here and hitting record that we discussed talking about that has been very interesting and seeing development. Actually, funny enough, I was going to say this on the recording, Benmont, after you told me what we should talk about, is brand building and how brands are kind of like elevating out of the woodworks and getting better results. Well-established brands are getting better results than just kind of your generic branding or people that haven't invested in branding in any way, shape, or form. And funny enough, Emma, about an hour ago from this recording, I actually got on with the CG Select group on the innovation call that I think that was the second call, and I hosted it and did a presentation on how you can leverage AI to help build your brand and how it's impacting your branding and that sort of thing. And got a lot of questions out of that. And I think that a lot of people are starting to see like the power of brand and the way that it connects people from, the motivations that they have to a trusted real estate investor. And I think too, like one of the things, and I'll let you talk here in just a second, but one of the things that I'm interested to see from like what you're seeing as well is I think a lot of real estate investors have always done the, we buy houses Chicago or we buy houses Indy or whatever, like, just generic branding, because it basically like, this is who we are and this is what we do. And it's in the name, right? It's the whole mantra of like, companies used to put AAA something because that was in the yellow pages, like you were indexed first, right? And that was kind of the thought process.
Yeah.
But a lot of real estate investors, they don't like to invest in brand because I feel like they think maybe it's emptiness or it's just like, not worth investing in or whatever, for whatever reason, that sort of thing. But talk to me about like the investors that you've been working with recently, what you're seeing in the works of how brand is actually impacting marketing, because obviously we're in a shifting market right now. So I'm curious to see what you got going on there.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic with AI, technology, consumer behaviors, and psychology, and all of the things, because as we all aspire to, I think, have the big brand, right? Like that's cool. I mean, look, you're logoed out, man, right? Like you got the big brand on. And the problem that's happened inside of the market with how much information and technology there is available is there's a trust recession in general with consumers. And now you see big brands reverting back to small personal influence, where specifically in this conversation today, I think it's like the value of personal brand is key. And right, like for some clout, we'll throw out names, but like you see like Charlie D'Amelio and Hailey Bieber, like promoting Dunkin' Donuts and coffee drinks. And you got, what's his name with the candy company where he's making $3 million a year. So you have these companies that built these huge brands, but like that didn't correlate to success. And I think scale that all the way down to whatever our businesses look like is, investors, we're trying to do the same thing, right? Like all we want is to have quality conversations with people who trust us and choose to explore, working with us. And that all is tied back to where we're seeing the best conversions of that being validated by a person or a personal brand.
Interesting. Okay, so something I want to kind of pivot to. So the difference between, when I first met you, you were working with Eric Brewer over at Integrity First Home Buyers. And that, being one of the biggest house buying companies up there in the Northeast. So from that pivot, how long ago would that have been? Like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe somewhere in there, maybe a little bit more recent. And then up to today, like what you're seeing with the investors that you're working with, how has that pivot happened? Because I know Eric specifically is like, I've had him on the podcast and we talked about branding, and he actually talked about personal branding too. You kind of spilled into that conversation a little bit. How do you see the difference between like, maybe not just with Integrity First, but even just that time period to today on how brand is kind of elevated and really setting people apart?
Yeah, I think brand has longevity to it where other things necessarily always don't. And it's a really hard place to be, because you can be spending money on marketing and making money, and then it's really hard for people to have the perception that like it might not last, it might not be able to be grown as big as I want it, I might not be able to control it enough, and then there's like negative impacts to it. So there's almost a season and a reason when brand is most important. Sometimes it's harder to build brand to get started, and like you buy your way to success quickly. So right, like let's find in real estate, let's find PPL companies, let's find third-party lead gen companies that can just give us leads so that we can get to revenue. But then what does that equate to over time is like, if your business and your future as a person and an owner becomes a byproduct of how good somebody else can do like on your behalf, that's not very stable. So I think finding that balance is key of like getting going, getting viable, and then getting stable in the business. And with stability and longevity comes the brand. As we've gone through that transition, and it's not quick or easy or cheap sometimes, but in that reference of Eric, it's like he's been doing this for 19 years. And this past year was the first year we've ever not relied on something that we can't control. So there is no prospecting. There is no third party anything. It is only us focusing on brand building in that ecosystem that has longevity to it and is tied back to our messaging of how we want to do business in general.
So you keep using the word ecosystem. So I know obviously like with, the way Eric, like, I've seen, he does TV ads, he does Facebook stuff, he does SEO, he does billboards. Like I've seen all kinds of different marketing. Is that the kind of ecosystem you're talking about? Is like, it's basically the connective tissue, the stitching together of all the messaging to create like authority. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And I think it has two reasons. The easiest thing, everybody listening at home, right? Get out your pen and paper and write down every marketing channel you have and then connect the ones together that help each other. And then what is on an island, I think, are the ones that you're going to find you spend money on, you make money doing it, but then is it like, it's a little prickly because it's like, is this really in alignment? And what would happen if I spent this money elsewhere? What would happen if I helped support something? And what that'll also go to show is making sure that you're maximizing the resources that you do have. Easy example there is like, if you have data, for whatever you're doing, if you have data and you're calling it and you're not mailing it, why not? You can add kind of a like secondary function to get just greater output out of what you're doing. If you're great at SEO and you're not doing anything to drive people to the web, like what else could you be doing at a low cost that could exponentially help the backside of those things? And as you play that little game, it's kind of like an org chart for marketing. When you find that something's on an island, it's kind of like an employee where it kind of performs and you might get a good return, but ultimately are they invested into the company and brought in like everybody else is? So
are they doing their own thing? Are they a lone wolf or are they actually with the pack? Right.
Yeah. Cause eventually that doesn't last. And again, like sustainable or scalable or longevity, however you want to view it, brand is that piece. I mean, right. You look at every big brand that we all could name and they've been around for a long time and they live for forever unless they get outpaced by, the industry or they get complacent and stop growing.
Yeah, for sure. So I always think about this great conversation to have because I always think about this when I'm, let's say, for example, I am interested in something with Nike. Like I'm typically going to get hit with a Facebook ad. Then I'm going to get hit with an Instagram ad. Then I'm probably going to get a mailer in the mail of like the new upcoming summer sale that they're having or whatever it is. And then I might get some emails. Like there's all kinds of different angles, but it's all pointing back to the brand in which is marketing to me. So I always make that connective relevance points and the pieces together. And it seems so simple on the surface, but I think a lot of real estate investors miss this when it comes to building brand is like, if you're going to spend, what you're saying is basically, if you're going to spend the money on the marketing piece, at least allow that to not just drive leads for you, but pour back into the brand that's going to build authority and basically stability in the marketplace in which you're operating.
That's like your long-term ROI. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's the immediate is when we make some cash. And then if it's just, this business is already very transactional. Every month, the only thing that we know is how much expenses we have rolling into the next month and we start all over. So if there's any way to gain leverage, in this place is to start to have that brand equity and brand authority that will give you referrals, that will give you lower cost per contract, that will give you the authority and trust that you convert more on the first appointment than you do in follow-up and all of those things. So I think there's a lot of unmeasured value that comes with really focusing on brand building.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask this question that I'm 100% sure is on somebody's mind that's listening right now. So obviously, real estate investors typically have a general way of doing things that other business owners don't. Like I always tie back to, I even mentioned this on the CG call this afternoon because somebody asked the question and I was like, I've been in this space for 13 years now, like specifically the real estate investing space. And one of the things that I see that every real estate investor typically leans towards is they want to tie a very specific dollar amount to a very specific action that happened, not just marketing, but even like, I filed these papers this way. How much money did that make me? Right? Like it's something that I don't know if it's just a habit that gets developed over time or what, but that's something that I see a lot of people doing. And in the world of branding and social media and stuff like that, like can't necessarily do that, especially on the organic side. But when we talk about branding as a whole, what I feel like is people will generally tend to shut off because they're like, you even said it, that's a long-term ROI play. And maybe somebody's sitting on here thinking like, Benmont, I don't got time. Like, I need deals now. And I need like maybe that PPL provider, or I need to, drop 30,000 pieces of direct mail or cold call these lists under a DBA or something like that. Like, what would you say to somebody like that needs the deals now, that necessarily can't like wait for that brand to develop to bring deals down the road? Maybe they know it's going to bring deals down the road and build that authority, but they need deals now. Like, what would you started talking about balance a little bit. Let's go into that a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I think it comes back to like vision and strategy. It's so funny. We all get into real estate investing because of the benefits of it. And then seemingly we become like little robots on an assembly line, and we become a byproduct of everything that we hear, see, and learn. And all of a sudden we wake up one day and we like despise the business because we asked 87 other people what we should do. So I think it comes back to having a clear vision and taking control of your own destiny. You can make money doing anything, right? So that it isn't just about that. I think if somebody told me I would have never survived in real estate being as objective and math driven as I am, when someone cries, I like get out a calculator and that just doesn't work. But I've become much more flexible. So I would give a lot of grace to that sediment of like season and reason. So if you said, hey, Benmont, I am going to work on this, and for the next 12 months, I'm going to do 5 social media posts a day. I'm really going to hit the ground at local events and do all these things. But in the interim, right, I need some cash and I need to generate deal flow. I think that's good. And then you find that parallel balance. It's very common, but I could tell anybody who's in that phase now that you're going to get to a revenue place that you won't be able to outkick your coverage in. So it's like you can ignore it today, but it's going to catch up to you tomorrow. I would challenge you to flip the script, be aware of knowing that you're going to hit a capacity standpoint with a lot of that like DFY style stuff that you can't control. And then you don't want to figure out the plan then. So I would say build a plan now, give some grace to yourself, allow for a transition period. It's kind of like inbound and outbound style stuff too. Eventually everybody's going to get sick of the quantitative outbound style. I don't want to have to talk to 110 people to get to the one. Like, I just want to get good. I believe in myself, my team, our skills. I just want to talk to the people who want to do business with me. And that's a better experience. Again, that kind of comes back to longevity and trust and all of the things that we all want.
Interrupting this podcast episode to tell you guys that this podcast is managed and produced by Color Media Productions. Yes, shameless plug, that's my company. However, we do this for a lot of other people as well. Most people that we work with are in the real estate investing space. So if you're listening to this podcast specifically, you probably are a real estate investor, given it's called the REI Marketing Weekly. If you're somebody that either wants to start a podcast or you have one going and it's becoming a little bit of a hassle, you're looking to transition to somebody that works a little bit better with a fluid motion in terms of you get the recordings done and then they do everything else. Well, that's what we do. We do fully managed podcasts from start to finish, video, audio, show noting, the graphics, publishing, everything that goes into it. It's a full service business that we run here in a service for you as a real estate investor if you are running a podcast. Additionally, we also do social media and YouTube management as well. So all of that being on the organic side, if you are interested in learning more about working with us and just recording content with guidance and strategy set by myself personally, and then not doing anything else after that, where we're taking care of everything from start to finish, then make sure you go check us out at colormedia.com, CULLER media.com. Hit us up there and we can learn more about working together, hop on a phone call and see what we could do for you. Now back to the episode. Yeah, and that's a good point to bring up too, because I feel like there's some people, personalities out there that like, a great example for me. Like if I'm a real estate investor and when I was, director of marketing for the wholesaling company I worked for when I first got in this space, it wasn't very popular for cold calling to be a thing. And then towards the end of my career in that, it started to come up a lot. And because the market was shifting, because most of the deals that we got were from like auction, HUD, MLS, so we didn't have to talk to sellers. So then once we started having to talk to sellers, like me personally, I'm like, I don't enjoy like just cold calling these people because it's not fun for me to do. It feels kind of icky. So if I ever started my company, I'd be like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this and put other people in a situation. But what, to me, the way that if you build a brand correctly and you invest and pour enough into it, like it's almost like you leave a door open and you allow your sellers to come to you as opposed to you chasing after them. They're chasing you essentially. You're not chasing after them, trying to get them to, sell your house, and you're constantly negotiating, constantly trying to, talk them into it and using these sales tactics and stuff like that. There's obviously like best practices that you need to take advantage of and learn when it comes to sales. But at the same time, like I think a lot of it depends on you as a person, your clarity on your vision and who you are, because Benmont, some business owners don't want that kind of marketing. Like I personally worked with people that are like, I don't do cold calling or text blasting or ringless voicemails because I feel like it's icky. And that's literally why they don't do it. And they find another way. And those are the people that have good brands that are reputable and that sort of thing. You see that
100%. Yeah. And I think it's, again, it just comes with some season in the space. Because I think that's what people we chase is, as you mentioned, we call it deal math. It's like every dollar I spend, there has to be a return for it. And I either justify expenses that way or I spend my money in anticipation of that. It's so funny when we sell our services. I'm like, that's our sales pitch at this point now. It's like the only thing investors relate to. Where it's like, dude, do you think for the cost of one deal, we would spend 2 days together and that you wouldn't have a great return? You wouldn't get another deal this year? What about one a quarter? They're probably like one a month. I'm like, dude, that's a 12-to-1 return. Like we should absolutely work together. So I think it is having the awareness to that. And I think sometimes we become a little bit ignorant, and we lack a little belief in ourselves to know that we don't have to come into the industry with this big brand. We have to kind of detach from the outcome. Where like if you did a social media post today and said, hey, I buy houses for cash, who has one? You may not find a deal, but like you need to start giving that information, creating those relationships, letting people know what you do. And then you will start to get that lead flow, those relationships, the deal flow, the interest, the recruiting. There's an exponential return on it. It measures slightly different than like I spent $100, I got XYZ in return.
Yeah.
And I think, unfortunately, patience and, like you said, just understanding that is very helpful for people as they navigate that journey.
Somebody like yourself that I know is well aware of your health and active in the fitness space and that sort of thing. Funny kind of like parallel that I look at with this will hit some people like correctly. Some people you may not get it, it'll go over your head. But I look at marketing almost like fitness. So if you go to the gym, it's your first time there. You just stepped in, you swipe your key card, get into the gym, you go lift a dumbbell, and then you look in the mirror. That's not the way to do it, guys. Like it's the consistent reps, consistency in the gym. If you miss a day, then you go into supplements. Like, right, I'm going to the gym right after I'm done recording this. I'm drinking my pre-workout right now with my creatine. Like, there's those things. Then when you get the advanced stage and you're starting to like learn more and actually seeing the results. But guys, like you can't expect to go to the gym or even just go for a run right now and then all of a sudden you drop 15 pounds and that sort of thing. Like it's a consistent drumbeat of those actions that are proven to work over time, and then you critique them, because everybody's health and fitness is not going to be the same, just like everybody's business is not going to be the same. The way that I run my workouts is not going to be the same as Benmont, because we have different vision and goals on what we want for our bodies. So we have to critique those along the way. But we know principally, as long as we get our asses in the gym, lift, eat correctly, then we're going to be healthy and relatively the way that we want to. So I look at marketing as a very similar situation. It's like it's every business is different, but you can't just expect to put out that first Facebook post like you talked about, saying we buy houses, not get a deal and say, didn't work. And then never do it again, because it is proven to have worked, but you just didn't do it enough times. It's the rep. But one of the funny things I saw this like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. There's this big media conference that's hosted by there's this YouTube channel called Think Media, and Alex Ramosi was a speaker there, and he talked about his early journey in the social media space. And obviously, like, this is the recording after he had done like his big book launch and that sort of thing this past weekend. So it's kind of fitting to talk about this right now. But on his presentation, he said that he was told by somebody else that, like, dude, you're doing the right things on social media. You're just not doing enough of it. So do more. So he started doing more, and then eventually that's when it took off. And sometimes, we have to just know what to tweak and the right things, but staying consistent with it and not stopping. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, that's key. And I love the analogy of the gym, because then once you gain momentum, you become addicted to the gym, right? Like
oh
health
yeah,
becomes a priority in your life. And it's like once you become addicted to building a brand, the brand becomes the authority that
yep.
drives all other aspects of what you can do in life. And I think we'll go slightly squishier, but I wouldn't tell anyone watching this to discredit like who and what they are. Like I literally am a nerd who's been in real estate for 6 years, not a sales guy, hated social media, and I've like made that commitment to do that and to try to start to build a brand. And we were blessed to go and build a 8-figure brand in 12 months by doing it. And it was consistency. Like it's a part-time job to stay relevant and to stay in the public eye, but I think sometimes we actually chase things that don't have as good of a return in hopes that it'll be quicker, when fast forward, like we all want to be in business by next year. So why not buckle down and get started on something that has a really good impact now? And before you know it, I think there will be results there.
Yeah, absolutely. And just remember, guys, like it again, just like with fitness, it's like, Benmont and I are in a mastermind. I won't name the mastermind, but it's a group of people that like all have coaching programs and stuff like that. They're marketers and everything. And you walk into that room sometimes and it gets overwhelming because everybody's doing something different. So like Benmont mentioned earlier, just because somebody says something is working for their business doesn't necessarily mean it might work for your business. So I talk about this a lot in marketing. It's like making sure that like you should know your business well enough to know if this piece of marketing is going to work for me generally, and have that aligned with your vision and all that. So just keep that in mind as you go along, because you might step into a mastermind group or step on a call or a training or something like that, and where somebody's teaching something very general, but like that works for them, it necessarily may not work for you. Like you can take bits and pieces to emulate it for yourself, but just keep that in mind. Like everybody runs their business very differently, and like everybody has different budgets. Like that's a big one. Just because Benmont is spending $20,000 a month on direct mailers doesn't mean I have the budget to do that. So we got to keep that in mind as we go along. So Benmont, I want to use the last like few minutes here because I think we've gotten a lot of like really, really good principles and theories and that sort of thing. But from what you are experiencing right now with the investors that you're working with, building brand, what are some actionable things that we could start with? So whether that be like, start sending the, direct mail that looks like this, or start running social media stuff that looks like this. Like, what are some very good like ways to start in order to start building our brand and piecing that together?
Yeah, I think two things recently stick out in my mind, and then translate that to however it applies to you. But there's information overload. AI has created so much information at people's fingertips that there's a term called satisficing now, where people are selecting the first thing that seemingly is good enough for their needs. So when you're doing any marketing, right, like how do you satisfy the consumers that you get in front of? If you're too vague, like you're not giving enough information, like in fear of like you don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. So I think it's like finding a balance of giving a lot of information to people that is relatable to them without it being like generic. So I think you have to be more intentional now than ever with how you communicate with people, because everybody at their fingertips can go and ask ChatGPT, and I mean every Google result has AI at the top of it. So you need to stand out from the crowd and be very relatable to people's circumstances and situations, not generic. So that's like one, and I think that has to carry through all of your messaging. I think even, I made a post, I get a little bit, depending upon free gym, right? Like a little caffeine, or later in the day, I'm not quite as spicy on social media, but like yesterday I was poking at fake checks a little bit. And it's like, are we really doing the best we can? Like all we're trying to do is be shocking and get somebody to call and either be mad at us or like hope that the number's wrong. So it's like, we're kind of like faking engagement in a response. And I think ultimately that's a good example of like the opposite of what we want to do. So I think everybody should lean into just having clear messaging that's solutions oriented for people, that is relatable. When they hear that, they reach out to you, that like they welcomely want to hear how you could help them and do business with them. So we do that pretty cost effectively and well through direct mail. And right, that's like, your letters, your postcards, show them you're a human being, show them, your family, your solutions, all of those things. TV is great because it's obviously, right, like not a static ad that they can see, know, like, feel, and trust you a little bit better through that. Localized TV in 2025 is great with certain programs that people have where it doesn't take huge budgets. Radio is another reasonable, cost-effective way to, right, get into people's heads. It's kind of like marketing, branding all in one. So I love the digital space where you can take people on a journey. So I'm pretty big on, making that personal impact and then driving them somewhere that you can continue that experience. Which also requires you to be really good at SEO and PPC advertising when you're doing anything else. Like up to 70% of our traffic is web forms currently in this market. So you have to reinforce your digital presence like phenomenally well online. And again, social media can even be a great way to do that, where people are like, oh, this is a human being. He's local. This guy's got a family and I get it. He grew up here. So just kind of putting a loop on that thought. That's like the ecosystem I live in.
Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, again, that presentation that I did about an hour and a half ago with the CG Select Group, I actually talked about how AI is being leveraged for like search results in the way that people are looking now in the specifics, the key phrases, the keywords, situational, the context. So what Benmont gave in that first point is how basically the sum of it is how niche you go. Like the more specific you get with your messaging. So if you're sending a direct mailer to a probate list, like get as specific as you possibly can, because that creates more connectivity tissue to be able to create relevance with your demographic, and that will build brand. So Benmont, like when I was presenting to this, like I was putting this together, I actually presented this at the last CG event, and man, it blew my mind, because the way that I was building the presentation was I was having ChatGPT feed me the information unbiasedly. And the way that people are just like, think about like, if we go to Google and if I'm a seller, okay, so I live right outside Chicago. If I'm a seller and I just inherited a property, if I go to Google and I type in, I just inherited a property in Chicago from my uncle that passed away. It needs a lot of work. I live 6 states away, but I don't want to manage the property. I need to sell it fast within 2 weeks. Who do I sell to? Try to Google that and see what happens. You're not going to get the answer you're looking for, I promise you. But if you take that to AI, whether it's Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, Gronk, whatever, and you type that in, based on the cited content that's out there from your brand or other brands, it's going to index that, send it back to the person that searched for that result based on those key phrases and keywords that you used in the prompt, and give you the exact answer that you're needing. That builds brand. So literally the presentation I gave Benmont was how to use AI to build your brand. Like that's what I titled it. And these kind of things are realistic. This is what's happening right now. And you saying the 70% up in that the web forms is like, that kind of reinforces a lot of the way that people are searching for stuff now, as opposed to like relying on those cold calls. And like now iPhones are making it easier than ever to like block calls and texts and stuff like that. Like you're not gonna be able to get through to people anymore like that. You're gonna have to build brand, be a good representation of who you are in your market space, and allow people to come to you. And it ultimately, Benmont, you tell me, it makes business a little bit easier too, right?
The greatest. We do, as you mentioned, we're blessed in Eric's team and our other entities that do a reasonable amount of deal flow a year. And we travel around the country and do 2-day on-site implementations of like going in, like, Gary and Susan, our friends at Sharper, set them up. And then we go in and work on kind of the sales machine side of things. And 80% of the time, our organizations probably do 3x the deal flow and have half the lead flow. And it's like, not in a non-egotistical way. It's just like, we've worked so hard to do less and be able to provide a better impact, because then our service can be much greater. We can move mountains for people when we don't have to talk to 1,000 to do it. And we can spend an hour talking to somebody. Like the amount of staff, hours, and capacity that we have divided by the amount of leads that we get, we physically could like nurture every lead 2 to 3 hours and just take care of them in the best possible way we can. And it's not in a 6-minute phone conversation asking like how old the roof is and the windows and everything else. So it's transformative for not only the longevity of a business, but like for the people that participate in that business. You talk about culture building activity, generate high intent inbound style leads, and you got yourself a good culture in there, and winning is actually hitting goals and having fun along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you feel like you're building towards something for sure. So, man, that's good stuff. Benmont, man, this has been a very, very good podcast. We're approaching that 30-minute mark, and I got to let you go soon. So I appreciate everything that you've shared, all amazing insights and information. And obviously, guys, like I said, stitch this back together and go listen to Joe Cipollini's podcast that aired a couple weeks ago, because I think that would be a good piece to kind of make that, a part one, this a part two, and complement each other really well. So Benmont, if people wanted to get connected to you, learn more about Ramp and how to work with you, first of all, talk about what Ramp is, and then how people can get connected with you to learn more.
Yeah, Ramp is started as a sales training community that we built internally for our organizations. We perfected a blend of teaching, coaching, and practicing inside of there, which is like the winning formula. Over the past year and a half, that's evolved to forward facing of over 450 people inside the community who want to be better at sales. We literally build a sales machine that is agnostic of market conditions, of certain marketing pieces, and it is the constant in your business. So if you think you could be better at sales, if you want to get better at sales, if you want to come hang out in one of the best sales building communities, that's us. You can learn more at ramprei.com, or my name is on the screen here. There's not too many Benmonts lingering around. Facebook or Instagram is a great and easy way to find me. I love sharing information and connecting with people. The first thing I always do is hit you in a DM with my calendar link, and I just love jumping on calls and chopping it up. No pressure. Just want to connect with people who either my experience have helped or they can help me, and we create a win-win solution. So reach out, DM me on social, or reach us at ramprei.com.
Absolutely. Guys, once again, ramprei.com. That will be down in the description, linked there for you. So make sure you do connect with them and find Benmont on social media. We'll also have his social media link down below. Facebook, Instagram.
Instagram's the best. I can't manage too many. I'm getting at the age now where it's like gotta focus on one or else it doesn't happen. So, and my TikTok dances just aren't up to par. So I'm out there.
That's okay. That's everybody nowadays. But well, we'll make sure we have all that linked below so you guys can connect with Benmont. But definitely go take advantage. Tell him that you heard Josh's podcast and you're connecting with him based off that. But Benmont, thank you for joining me, man. I appreciate you and I appreciate your time, and look forward to having you back again soon.
Always a pleasure, man. And we may cross paths here and maybe in the near future at an event. So we'll see you soon.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for listening today. If you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to the show. Share this around with your friends, and make sure that you take notes as well as we go into the next few episodes. We're going to be having some really good guests coming down the show. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you have subscribed to my YouTube channel. Just go look up Josh Culler on YouTube, and I'm putting out a lot of content about how to create your content and a lot of really good stuff there. So make sure you go check that out. But other than that, thank you guys for joining me today, and we'll catch you in the next one. See you later.